Hi! So this is the last little bit of a base game playthrough that I'm doing with Saboteur before I continue that character on into Fangs of Asterkarn, which at the time of recording is due to come out tomorrow. This is just kind of like little highlights of Forgotten Gods. Going to be kind of a shorter video just because there isn't that much in Forgotten Gods, to be honest with you. So here we have a little Ancient Spirit Totem, and the first time running into Kaisan in Ultimate Difficulty going on in the background here. And I've put up a few different videos of this kind of Saboteur character here. It is objectively not that good of a character. But that doesn't matter because I'm having fun with it. And that's kind of the more important thing to me here is I like the feel of this and how this character has been playing. So I'm definitely going to go forward with this through Forgotten Gods, even though it's really not that powerful. And I hit a hard wall here at the end of this video, and that is okay. As much as I love the base game of Grim Dawn, by the time like Forgotten Gods rolled around, I was kind of on the tail end of it. And I feel like I really didn't play this game through very much. The Forgotten Gods expansion, that is. Spent a ton of time in the base game in Ashes of Malmeth. Not so much Forgotten Gods. I think I was just... By that time, I had so many hours in the game that I really only played through Forgotten Gods maybe twice. And I didn't stick around until the roguelite dungeon with Morgoneth came out. I had moved on to other things by the time that came out. So if you notice in like the kind of... One of the earlier videos I kind of showed, I think it was like a build video, I kind of show beating Morgoneth for the first time, and I get an achievement for it because I had actually never done that roguelike dungeon before since it came out after I had stopped playing the game. So in a way, this is like I barely remember this content going through it, which is kind of nice and kind of refreshing, to be honest with you. But it isn't kind of like near and dear to my heart, so there's like a ton of nostalgia vibes, but still had a pretty good time in Forgotten Gods here. One of the few memories I do have is I remember I had this one character where I made it like the entire way through everything on Ultimate until I kind of got to Dravis, who I just kind of took out a little while ago, and he one-shot my character. I like didn't realize he had like that volcano thing, and I think I had stood on it and I was arrogant, and he killed me, and that was kind of one of my memories of the first time I played through Forgotten Gods, or maybe the second time I played through Forgotten Gods, was of that asshole Dravis one-shotting me with a volcano shotgun. But generally, most of the non-optional content here in Forgotten Gods really isn't that bad. And cool thing here is that Kymon actually drops like a double rare here on the first time I killed him here, which you know is probably good for some character, and is the sort of thing that is worth hanging on to just in case I can kind of do some re-rolling or something like that in in Fangs of Asterkarn. It may be used that for another character, so really lucky there on that first time going through here and killing Kymon and having him just drop something really kind of, well, that could be potentially turned into something cool, I guess. And that's one of the things I kind of really like about this game. It's just, you don't always have a build where it's like you're premeditatedly creating something and you have this plan all along. Sometimes you just get something cool that drops, and you're like, maybe I can do something with that. So here we are at Korvaak, last boss of Forgotten Gods. One thing I kind of regret in this playthrough, given that it's so long since I've played this game and I barely had any recollection of it, I really should have done more reading of the lore as it dropped here for this character. Because I'm like, trying to remember, why am I fighting Korvaak again? What's going on? If you're coming back to this game after a long time like I am, read the lore notes. I should have done this on this kind of long extended playthrough of this game here, just because it is such a key and core part of this game. all of that exceptionally well-written lore. But regardless of the reasons that we're here and we're fighting Mr. Korvaak, we are going at it to the death here. And at the end of the day, he is not able to do a whole lot to me here. I just have... This character's got decent resistances. He's not super tanky, but he's good enough for this fight. The base game bosses could be tuned up a little bit, I think, in this game. Like, the super bosses are a very good level of challenge, I think. But they could tune these guys up a little bit. They're a little too easy. You know, the Loghorian, Theoden, Marcel, and Korvaak. They could, you know, use a little bit of a steroid injection or something, an unnerfing kind of, as it were. Because like I said, this is not a good optimal build, and it really kind of seems pretty easy for the most part. I'm not killing him fast, but he's not doing damage to me, and that's kind of where I guess the mismatch is in. He's not able to do enough damage to someone who is not even optimized for tankiness. Opportunity for tuning, I think, there by Crate. Especially if there's going to be power creep in Fangs of Asterkarn that makes these guys even easier. Maybe that's like something the Ascendant mode fixes, but even, you know, even in, the base game difficulties, they could be tuned up a little bit here. And did I never beat him on Ultimate? There was an achievement unlocked there. That's funny. I maybe got bored of the game before I beat him on Ultimate. You know, I probably played through all of Forgotten Gods. My memories are probably of playing it through on Normal and Elite. And then maybe I just was bored by the time I got to Ultimate. The playing the game three times through thing, that trope does get old. I should use merits in the future. So lastly, we got a part of the game that I was fully expecting to die with on this particular character. This is kind of going through the post-Korvaak roguelike dungeon to take on Morgoneth. I have only done this once, and that was on normal difficulty with this character, and that was hard. Like, all the tentacles, Scions of Hunger showing up they can be kind of brutal. And I expect to die here because I am not familiar with the area at all. I am not familiar with the mechanics. And even on normal, this was a pretty good challenge. So this dungeon came out after I had stopped playing with the game, and that's why I'm not like super familiar with it. So I kind of did it pretty thoroughly on normal difficulty, but I am going full-on coward here in ultimate difficulty, and I am just running past everything for the most part, because like I said, I expect to die here with this character. So I think at this point I'm sitting at around 4 total deaths with this character. I remember I had 1 on normal difficulty, where it was like the pit boss guys. I had 1 on ultimate difficulty with a ancient celestial totem that killed me. 1 other random death somewhere else. I'm blanking on that. And then I had a Shattered Realm death. So I've made it all this way to the last roguelike dungeon here on Ultimate without dying. And I'm expecting this to be like my 5th death here, taking on Morgoneth. Because from everything I've read online, it's like he is kind of considered a little bit up there with the other super bosses. He's not quite as bad as like Ravager or, Kalagadra or anything like that. But, he's up there with he's like a half a step below them. And I am just unfamiliar with him, and it is a roguelike with all those modifiers. So I am being super cautious and running around like a coward against this guy here. And even though kind of I expect to die here, he's not really hitting me all that hard. So I've kind of gone down close to half health here. And this is going to take a while. So I honestly think I'm going to fast forward this a little bit at this point. And I've mentioned kind of a couple times here that this is not a powerful build. And it definitely has weaknesses on the damage output side of things. Its damage multiplier is actually really low for a cold damage focused build. And that's because I'm focusing on things that seem cool and fun to me rather than pure damage. So, I am a cold build who is summoning flame cyclones and dust devils, which means those pieces of gear aren't cold damage pieces of gear. So my damage is really low accordingly. I'm fine with that because for most of the content in the game, it is more than okay. It's really just for some of these kind of like super bosses and kind of the one notch below super bosses that this guy, that it ends up being kind of annoyingly slow. But I kind of surprised myself here and actually end up on my first try ever against this boss on Ultimate beating him, because I expected him, and you can see kind of achievement unlocked there. It's the first time I faced this guy in Ultimate, and it worked out pretty easily. Second time total, played him on normal, and now here. I was shocked by that because, like I said, this is not that good of a character here. Now, at the end of the Ashes of Malmeth content, I said I was kind of saving Ravager until the after I'd gotten through Forgotten Gods here. So this is Ultimate Ravager of Flesh against this character. And I kind of foreshadowed this a little bit at the beginning of this particular episode. This does not go well. He is hitting me like a truck after like none of the other enemies in the game have been able to like do any sort of damage on me. And at this point, I'm starting to realize Ravager of Flesh was the wrong one to pick for this character, wasn't it? And I probably should have picked one of the other ones that are maybe more suited to like this kind of ranged, pseudo-ranged kind of character that I have here. But yeah, this is not going to go well. And there we go. That is death number 5 to the Ravager. And he made it look easy. So, what you do in that case is you hop right back up on the bus and you give it another try. Not bus, bike. You hop back up on the bike and you give it another try. But, sometimes it's really just kind of not meant to be with a particular character. And the Ravager is optional content. You don't have to do them. There's death number 6. So I realize I need to change things to have any hope against him. So at this point, I have basically backed off to elite difficulty from Ultimate to try him again. I have spent about a day's worth of playtime on this character, farming up slightly better gear. And by slightly, I mean crafting things that are better suited to this particular fight and that boost my armor. This guy does physical, bleeding, and vitality. I've changed my devotions to add the turtle shell and to add the elemental or the arcane barrier. And I've also leveled up cleansing waters as well, which if tortoise shell doesn't work well, I can swap that out and give that a try. So what I've done here is I have put on a lot of gear that has overcapped my bleeding and vitality resistance. This comes at a cost, and my offensive ability has like gone into the shitter accordingly. And when you have a lot of on crit effects, that's not great. So I've kind of cut out a lot of this kind of like first attempt here on Elite. I actually probably could have beaten him here if I had been drinking less. But I kind of got impatient. And he ends up at some point here getting me. Spoiler alert. It should be coming any moment now. I can see the thing in the video editor getting closer to the end of this clip. So I know he's going to get me here in a second. I have a lot of on crit effects with this character. I have Living Shadows to get summoned on crit. I even put on Eternity for this particular fight to get better cooldowns with all my Circuit Breakers against him. And that is an on-crit effect. Some of my Flame Cyclones that I summon are on-crit effects. And my OA being so bad means I don't crit. And I'm doing very little damage to him. And he kills me because I get bored of the fight. So by bored of the fight, you know, you get complacent and you make mistakes is really what I mean there. So right back at it. What I've done here is I'm just cutting out the vast majority of this fight because it's a half hour of me just kiting him back and forth on this corridor. On elite difficulty, not even ultimate difficulty. I've swapped out Tortoise Shell for Ulo, the Keeper of the Waters, so that has an effect where I can basically turn off any bleed effects and dots that he has, and I think he has a huge OA debuff that he does too, in addition to my OA being shit to begin with. So Ulo was theoretically supposed to help with that, but this is like a half an hour to whittle him down to this point. And I am being exceptionally cautious here. The other thing that I'm doing, you may notice at the end of my skill bar, there's like a 1:10 cooldown that's kind of taken down there. I am using Aether clusters here as like my big damage chunks. So I'm doing this cowardly running away kiting. And then every minute and a half, I'm trying to go in and blast him for 8 seconds with everything else while I have that Aether cluster chunk giving me 75% damage absorption. They're like one of those things that they're like such a limited consumable in this game. I never used them, so they just build up a huge stockpile. And I've done a lot of farming with this particular character. I have done 4 days worth of gameplay with this character farming. So I have a lot of Aether clusters from all the Aether shards and stuff that and Aether clusters that I was trying to get for, you know, blowing up legendaries to kind of craft all my gear here. But eventually, on elite, after like half an hour, this guy is going to kick it. And this is just on, again, this is just on elite difficulty. So at this point, you know, I've reached that conclusion that this particular build is not going to beat this guy on ultimate difficulty. And that is okay. You know, this is optional content. You don't have to beat this guy. I have fun with this character the rest of the way through the game. I'm okay if he can't beat Ravager. I knew he wasn't going to be able to beat the Crate of Entertainment because this is an AoE guy and that crate just spawns things like crazy, supposedly. And I probably can't beat Kalagadra on Ultimate either, but maybe on Elite. So that's kind of like the power wall for this character, at least until we get to the power creep from Fangs of Asterkarn, at which point I may be able to come back and take this guy out on Ultimate. You know, I may even be able to take this guy out on Ultimate as is, but if it's something that's going to take an hour of my life to do, I just have no interest in doing that. Even this half an hour, I was kind of pissed about doing this. And that is just because of the nature of this build, and it is a low DPS build. And there he goes. Elite Ravager. Not as impressive as beating him on Ultimate, but still like a reasonably tough fight. So that's kind of like the power cap of this character. And at this point, it's just countdown for Fangs of Asterkarn with him. I have a bit more farming that I may do in the meantime. I kind of want to get double rares for all my monster infrequents, and I don't have that yet. So I'll spend a little bit of time trying to get those farmed up, just so I have those ready to do some playing around with that kind of new gearing system. I hope it's still in the game. I think they had mentioned if you get like rare affixes, you can kind of re-roll them until you get good ones. Hopefully that's still true and I'm not misremembering it because I put a lot of time into farming that stuff. But anyways, I've had a lot of fun with this guy. He can't beat everything in the game. That's okay, because I had fun. And I think he'll continue to be fun in Fangs of Asterkarn. Thanks for watching. Bye.